بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله وصحبه وقدره والمقداره العظيم والحمد لله. So we're here, we're learning about the Quran, and every day we're going through like a juz. Every day we're going through like a spara or a section of the Quran. And what we're trying to understand is just get a general meaning of what the Quran is. Inshallah. Maryam, do you want to tell us what is the Quran? How would you define the Quran?
The Quran is from Allah.
Anything else? Anything else? What do we use the Quran for? Why do we read it?
So we can understand what Allah is trying to tell us to do.
Okay, good, mashallah. So the Quran is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was the one who was given the Quran. There's no one else who could have been given the Quran other than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we know the story. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in the cave of Hira. Yeah, and what was he doing in the cave? He was worshipping Allah. He was in a state of what they call silent meditation. He's silent and he's worshipping his Lord. He's silent and he's worshipping Allah. And what happens then? An angel comes to him. Yeah, an angel comes to him, and this angel tells him to read or to recite. And he says, "I don't know how to read." Like he couldn't. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he couldn't read or write. This is one of the secrets. Even though he couldn't read or write, he came with the greatest book in human history. That tells you it's not from him, it's from Allah. Because he couldn't read or write, he didn't know poetry, nothing. He says, "I can't read, I can't write. I'm not a poet." The angel takes him and squeezes him. Intensely squeezed. They said he squeezed him so tightly that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "I thought I was going to die." The pain was so tight, it's like he's squeezing my insides, like my lungs are coming together. He's squeezing me immensely. And then he let him go. Then he said again, "Read, iqra," read or recite. He has both meanings. Read. The Prophet ﷺ says, again, I'm not a reader. I don't recite poetry. I don't read. I don't recite. He says, no. He grabs him, squeezes him again, lets him go. He did this 3 times. Every time the Prophet ﷺ felt like he was gonna die. Why is he doing this? He's preparing him for the Quran. Because the Quran is from Allah. Who is Allah? Allah is the Almighty. Allah is stronger than anything we can imagine. So imagine the words of Allah are very, very strong. They're very, very powerful. So someone's heart to be ready to take those words, he has to be ready, he has to be prepared. So this is what happened, and then these words came down. So the Quran, the definition that the Usuli and the scholars of Islam they gave, they say Kalamullah unzila ala qalbi rasulihi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's the word of Allah that descended upon the heart of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That his heart is the greatest entity in creation. There's nothing greater in creation than the heart of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why? Because it would take the word of Allah, which is infinite, it's beyond this universe. The word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes beyond anything we can see. And yet the heart of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam can contain that word. It can contain the meanings that come from Allah. This is the greatness of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then they say what? The Quran is the word of Allah revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, muta'abbidan, it's used for worship. We use it in the prayer. Every time we read one letter of the Quran, how much rewards do we get? 10. Just for one letter, we get 10 rewards. So it's the best way we can please Allah. One of the greatest scholars that we've ever had, his name is Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, he was a man, if you want to understand who is Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, he used to read the whole Quran in one day. The whole Quran in one day. My daughter now, she's finishing the Quran. How long is it going to take? It takes a long time. If you do Quran in 1 month, we're happy. He used to read the Quran in one day. They said he'd memorized over 1 million hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He memorized over 1 million of his statements. So they said, Ahmad bin Hanbal, once he sees Allah in a dream. This was a man who had purity that he could see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the dream state. And we can't even imagine what that even means. Yeah, so he sees Allah in a dream and he says, Ya Allah, what is the best thing? What's the best thing someone can do to get close to you? What's the best thing someone can do? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals in his glory, he says, to recite my book. The best thing you can do to get close to Allah, to make Allah happy with you, to make Allah pleased with you, which is what we want. That's why we're here on this world, is for Allah to please. That's the only reason. Nothing else really matters, to be honest. Like even now, why do we go to school? Why do we go to school? So we can please Allah. We can learn about things to make Allah happy. Why are we nice to our friends so we can please Allah? Why are we good to our parents so we can please Allah? Why do we give in charity so we can please Allah? Why are we learning now so we can please Allah? Every single thing that we do is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah, every single thing. So the best thing, he says, read the Quran. If you can't read, then read Alif, Ba, Ta, start learning how to read it. That's the best thing you can do. Then he says something very interesting. Ahmad Hanbali says, okay, you want me to read the Quran? Is that with understanding or without? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his glory and his might, he says, with or without understanding, you get reward. So even if you don't know what it means, you're getting reward. Even if you don't know what it means, you're getting reward. But what about if you know what it means? Then what? Subhanallah, we can't even imagine the reward. Somebody will understand, because the Quran was revealed to be understood. We're supposed to act upon it. Can you act upon something that you don't understand, that you don't know? Like if I'm reading, if I start reading to you now, Innal insana la yatqa'ara wastaghna. Okay, what does that mean? I don't know. But how can you act upon it? You can't, you have to know. Now, to give an example, imagine a king writes you a letter, and in that letter, he's telling you everything you need for your life, everything you need to be happy, to be a good person, all of it's in that letter. And he sends that letter to you, and you don't even learn how to understand, you don't even know what it means. Is that king going to be happy with you? What do you think? Do you think the king will be happy with you? Why not? MashaAllah, exactly. He sent that for you to understand. He didn't just send it for you to look at it. Oh, isn't that amazing? What a word. Okay. Istaghna, that's a word. Okay. Iqra, that's a word. Rabbik, that's a word. Akram, it doesn't matter. You have to understand it. MashaAllah, exactly. And you're saying to us to understand it. Once we understand it, then MashaAllah. Yeah, so our job as people who have come to this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent us here to understand the Quran, to know what the Quran means. The best thing is that we know every single word by word what it means. That's the best thing, isn't it? Or we know line by line what it means. That's the next best thing. But at least let's understand the general meaning. So I can take one juz of the Quran, which is maybe 30 pages. At least let's understand what those 30 pages are talking about, even if I don't know it word for word. We should know it word for word. We all that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they say, who is Allah? He's ma'bud mustahiqun lil ibadah. That he is the one who deserves to be worshipped. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we worship him. Why? Because he's Allah. Even if he gave us nothing. Imagine Allah didn't give you any blessings. He didn't give you sight. He didn't give you hearing. He didn't give you food. He didn't give you children. He didn't give you parents. Imagine Allah gave you nothing. Nothing whatsoever. You were born deaf, dumb, blind, without anybody. Even then, you worship Allah. Because he deserves to be worshipped. He's Allah. He deserves to be worshipped. He's created you to worship him, to know him. That's it. Yeah. So we should really try. We should try. And it is difficult to try to understand a new language, but we should try. Especially for the children here amongst us, you should, inshallah, we make dua to Allah, become masters of the Arabic language. We need people now who have mastered the Arabic language. That's what we need. People who know the Quran inside out. They can explain it to the whole world. This is what we need now. So we should have high intentions for our children and the children amongst us as well. One of the things we see in the Quran, you want to understand the Quran, look at the Surah Luqman. Surah Luqman is a surah that the Sayyidina Ibrahim is talking to his son, who is 7. How old are you? 11. How old are you? 7. MashaAllah, we read the jackpot. How old are you? 10. 13. Oh, MashaAllah, he's a big boy. 3. 10. Yeah. So now he's talking to his son. His son's 7 years old. He's 7. Yeah. And he's talking to him like an adult. He says to him, he says, listen, I've just seen a dream. In that dream, I'm slaughtering you. I see a dream. In that dream, I'm slaughtering you. What do you think? What's your opinion? And he says, listen, do as you please. Yeah. Do as you please. I'll be patient. I'll be patient. I'm happy. Whatever Allah wants you to do that. Yeah. He's not saying, sorry, I forgot to ask you, how old are you? 11, mashallah. Yeah. So look at the way he's talking to them. That's important. Yeah. So inshallah, we should all try to make an effort, young and old. Yeah, it doesn't matter. There's a man in Mauritania. They say he was like 66, I think. 66 is trying to memorize the Quran. And we know your memory Again, like, subhanAllah, the fakir I'm experiencing it now, I'm like 39 now, subhanAllah, I struggle. When I was like in my early 30s, I could memorize a page of Quran in like, 5 minutes. Now, subhanAllah, and then you forget it, remember, forget. It's a struggle. So this one is 66. They said in 2 years, he learned half the Quran. 2 years, half the Quran. This is dedication, himma, dedication, determination. Yeah, so if he can do it, then for you, 7-year-olds, the average 7-year-old, 2-3 years to do the whole Quran. That's normal throughout Islamic history. Yeah, so inshallah ta'ala, that's just the beginning. Memorizing the Quran by itself doesn't mean anything if you don't preserve the rules of Allah. Yeah, if you don't, what does it mean to be a hafiz of the Quran? It doesn't mean that you just know the words. It means that you preserve the rules of Allah, that you don't go beyond the boundaries. You don't do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want you to do. Yeah, so inshallah, so we're going to look at some of the general meanings of this juz, the 14th juz, the 14th surah in the Quran. That's got 2 surahs in it. It's got one called Surah Al-Hijr, and it's got another surah called Surah Al-Nahl. What are the 2 surahs, Maryam? Surah Al-Hijr or Surah Al-Nahl. Yeah. Yeah. So these are the 2 surahs. Now, what's the main theme? What's the main idea in this surah that I want you to understand? There's one idea in both of these surahs, in this juz, in this para. That's an idea of shukr, gratitude. Yeah, shukr. Yeah. What's shukr? What does it mean to be thankful? Allahu Akbar. Yeah, excellent. That's a very good example. So you say when you get food and you say, thank you Allah for what you've given me. This is thankfulness. Yeah, this is thankfulness. So this para, this chapter, it talks about all of the amazing blessings Allah's given us. And it goes through them one after the other. Yeah, and it's telling you to be thankful. So it's teaching you this is what Allah's given you. Allah has given you everything you can think about. Food is one of them. Yeah, Allah has given us a life. Allah allows us to walk, to see, to be able to live with other people. You have parents, we have a house. We have all of these things. And to be honest, most people, they don't have these things in the world. Most people don't. Yeah, half of the world, we don't even have water because we're fasting. You have a glass of water. Half of the world, they don't have clean water to drink. Half of the world. So 1 in 2 people. Yeah, and what's water? Have we ever gone in a day in our life without water? No. We're always going to end up with water. We don't have water to drink. So there's a lot of things for us to be grateful for. MashaAllah. Yeah, so this surah, it goes through that and it's teaching you. Like we said yesterday, that shukr is in here in your heart. You should feel in your heart. You should say thank you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah, this is why as people, we have to speak to Allah. The prophets. Yeah, the prophets that came. Who were the prophets? Yeah. Yeah. So these are the names of some of the prophets. But what is a prophet? Do you know what's a prophet? A messenger. Okay, what's a messenger of Allah? Excellent. Someone who spreads Islam, spreads the truth. Yeah, so someone who takes a message from Allah and he spreads it. That's a prophet. You know what the prophets used to do? They never used to talk to people a lot. We might think all day long they're talking to people, isn't it? Explaining. No, they're not. They never used to speak to people that much. You know who they used to speak to? Allah. They used to be making dua to Allah. The Prophet ﷺ, his da'wah, when he was calling people to Islam, he was telling people to believe in Allah. They said 80% of his da'wah was dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. 80% of it. So most of his time he was spent speaking, Ya Allah, guide my people. Guide, because what power do we have? So really we should be speaking to Allah. And the most important conversation we should have with Allah is thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for this time. And then just reflect and reflect and reflect. They say, 1 hour of reflection, of thinking about the blessing Allah has given you as an example. 1 hour of reflection is better than 70 years of worship. You could spend 70 years standing, reading the Quran again and again for 70 years. You do 1 hour of thinking about Allah's blessing. Some even say 1 minute. Some scholars, they'll say 1 minute of reflection is better than 70 years of worship. Yeah, so this is where we need to be. What's happened now is we live in this dunya. Now, the dunya we're living in now is distracted us. So we've forgotten about these things. Children have more purity. Children, mashallah, they don't have to worry about mortgages. They don't have to worry about paying bills. They don't have to worry about what so-and-so said at work and how do I get on the next bit of the career ladder. They don't have to worry about getting an extension on their house. They don't have to worry about these things. We worry about these types of things, and therefore we become distracted. Now, one of the secrets of leaving these environments, going somewhere else, you stop being distracted. Like the fakir person, I remember I went to Yemen. I went and I lived in a desert, like a valley in Yemen. It's a valley, there's nothing there. There's a masjid, there's a few shops, and that's about it really. There's nothing there. But that environment, now you can start to think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I would sit like this in the musalla. Some days I would sit there for 10 to 12 hours a day, just in the musalla, because you have your lessons, you have about 5 or 6 lessons there, then you have your dhikr before and after, then you have your salah, then it's just constantly in there. So you sat there in the musalla, you're looking, and suddenly you start to think about, what's going on? Who am I? What's life really about? What's Allah given me? How can I be thankful to Allah? You start to think about these things, questions that you don't even think about. Because you're too busy thinking, can I get my prayer in? What I've got to get that done. I've got my list of things I've got to get through. All this. So you start to, the other thing is, if you think about it, I'm sat in the masjid, I've got no distractions. My 5 prayers are taken care of. Obviously, I'm going to pray my 5 prayers. I'm in the masjid. What else am I going to do? It's not like I've got to run from work and get my prayer in and I might miss it. Prayer is taken care of. Number 2, I'm not going to look at anything haram. I'm in a masjid. Yeah, I'm not going to look upon someone else in a bad way because everyone in the masjid is better than me. They really are. So I don't have to pretend. Of course, they're all students. I'm not those great scholars. I'm just like some foreigner that's come into this great place. So I'm the worst person there. I don't have to. That's not an effort. That's obvious. I'm the worst person there. The reality is we're always the worst people in every room, but we might not see that. But here it's very clear. Yeah, so there's no distractions at all. So and I'm sat there. 5 minutes, 10 minutes go by. Eventually, those dunyawi thoughts, they leave you. Like, how much can you think about the dunya? After a while, they leave you. So what are you going to think about then? You're going to start looking inward. You're going to start thinking about bigger things. How can I get closer to Allah? How can I speak to Allah? How can I focus upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Yeah, and when you start to do that, then you start to, it's amazing. I would recommend for anybody, try it. Go out and go and sit. Like we have itikaf, even better. The one itikaf we have now is we know too many people. Itikaf. Go to itikaf go to Bristol, go to itikaf there as an example. Or go to Wales. Go somewhere where no one knows you. Then do itikaf. And what you'll see, first day, dunya, thinking about this, thinking about how, is my wife okay? I wonder how the kids are doing. Did I leave the gas cooker on? Yeah, all these kind of thoughts going round, yeah. Eventually, they'll stop. And then you start to think about Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then you start to think about you start to think, how can I see the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam? That's what you start to think about. How can I see him? And you start to desire within your heart to see the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How often in our world do we think about seeing the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Those people there, every single moment, that's all they're thinking about. Their purpose and objective is just to see the face of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's it. And that's all they're thinking about. Then you start to think about, how can I gain more knowledge? And then you start thinking, the knowledge, is this the best thing that I'm learning? I'm learning this knowledge. Maybe I should learn something else. Here, we're not even learning anything here. Like we said, this is the problem. We talk about Uncle Man. No one even, then you start to forget about learning. Think, I'm learning this. No, I'm going to learn this. This is better for me. This is better for my heart. Or you go to the teachers and say, listen, what shall I learn? Look at my situation. I'm in a mess. They'll say, okay, mashallah, learn the seerah first. Or learn spirituality first. Or learn the fiqh, learn how to pray first. You don't know how to pray, learn that first. They'll tell you what to do. They give you a program. The program is not as you become a university graduate. The program is so you can sort out the mess that is your life. That's the program. You're in a mess, we'll help you. It's a hospital. These places, they're hospitals. People go there, they're ill, they're very, very sick people. They're arrogant. They think that they're better than others. They're envious, they're jealous of other people. They're stingy. They don't have to spend their wealth, their time upon others. Yeah, the ostentation, any good thing that they do, they have to show off to the world. They've got all these diseases that are worse than cancer, terminal diseases. They have these things within them. They go there, they sit with doctors of the highest level, doctors who know exactly how to treat you. They know when to smile. They know when to frown. They know when to be nice, when to be harsh, when to withdraw. They know exactly what to do. They treat you in a wise, perfect way. Yeah, you get all of that. They put you into environments. Go there, go here, go. They put you into environments of sanctity and safety. I mean, environments of knowledge. You tell, because each knowledge that you learn has a different impact on the heart. You learn, for example, seerah, and you learn about the stories of the Prophet. So that's a different feeling. Then you learn about fiqh, how do I pray? That's a different one. Then you learn about the meanings of the Quran. That's a different one. They all give you different, it's medicines, isn't it? They all give you, there's different treatments for different people. They give you all of that. And then they say, okay, spend more time there. It's all weighed out. It's like an individual plan for each person. And then what happens, you start to see progress. I'm actually getting better. Like I can actually say Allahu Akbar and concentrate on Allah throughout my whole prayer. I could never do that before. Now I can say Allahu Akbar and it's easy for me to concentrate on my prayer. I can sit, like we used to sit there, you get there for the Hajj, like about 3 in the morning. You read 1 hour, you read like 3 juz of Quran in an hour. Then you spend about half an hour, 40 minutes revising your lesson notes. Yeah. And then the dhikr starts. They do like about 40-minute dhikr before Fajr. This is all before Fajr even starts. Then Fajr starts. You pray Fajr behind an imam. There's people literally passing out when you pray. They just, Allah, they're passing out in the prayer. I was ajib. The fakir, I've never seen this in my life. People are they're so affected by hearing the speech, Allah's speech, that they're knocked out. They're literally just falling over. What's going on? Whatever come to? These people are the mad people. For us, they're like crazy people. How can you love the Quran that much? How can you be that affected? For them, it's normal. No one else bats an eyelid. You're just the only one who's like, what's going on? So and that's Fajr. Then after Fajr, you have your first lesson. Then you have another lesson. Then you have breakfast. Then you have another lesson. So 9 o'clock comes. Look what you've done in 9 o'clock. You've read 3 juz of Quran. You spend about 40 minutes revising your notes. You spend another 40 minutes remembering Allah. You prayed your Fajr. You read the Quran. You've done more dhikr. You've had 3 Islamic lessons and it's 9 o'clock. Now that's transformation. When you do that, then your heart becomes accustomed to that. You start to understand what's gratitude about. Yeah. Otherwise, a lot of these things now, these maqams and spiritual stations, that's all they become is just like words. Without an environment that can anchor you in that reality, they just become words. Yeah, but still, we still study them, we still hope for some type of benefit. But the true realities of shukr can only be found in an environment of shakirin, where you around people who are in a state of shukr. You know, they talk about this, like the scientists of today, they talk about a concept called entrainment. People will be familiar with entrainment. Entrainment is that the person next to you become like them. So, you know, like if you're walking with someone, you start walking the same step pattern as them. That's the human being. You know, like when you're breathing, if you start with someone, you start breathing at the same rate that they breathe. Your heart actually synchronizes. Your heartbeat synchronizes with them. So this is the human being. So whatever we're around, that's what we're going to copy and take from. That's why are the Sahaba so great? Because who did they sit with? Who did they sit with? They sat with an individual with a heart that could contain the word of Allah. So their heart became entrained with the heart, the living heart. The heart from which all of the hearts gain life. Yeah, like one of the names of the Prophet is Muhyi. He's the giver of life. How can he not be the giver of life when he's Muhammad? He's the fountain of all life. Yeah, he's a fountain. Like they mentioned, the great Imam al-Busayri in his Burda, he says that your brother Isa, he says he called a man or two and he came to life. And he says, وَأَنْتَ أَحْيَيْتَ أَجْيَالٍ مِنَ الرِّمَمِ, and you have brought generations back to life. You brought millions of people back to life, spiritual life through your message. Spiritual life. Yeah, the Prophet so when he's sitting with people that have sat with people, that have sat with people, that have sat with Muhammad, that's powerful. When he's sitting with people that have eyes, they looked upon people, that looked upon people, that looked upon people, that looked upon people, that looked directly upon the face of the Prophet himself. They're breathing the same air from someone who breathe the same air, someone who breathe the same all the way. That's sanad. It's a connection. And they'll give you a sanad in everything. You know, the fakir, like I've got my tasbih, they gave me a sanad. You have your ring, they give you a sanad in your ring. They tie a turban, they give you a sanad. The way I've tied my turban is the way my teacher tied his turban. The way all the way back to the way the Prophet tied his turban. They give you a sanad in everything you can think of. They give you a sanad, even like, you know, like our teacher Sheikh Ibrahim, the way he arranges the seats. You know, when he has a lesson, you know, the way he arranges the seats. He's got a sanad for that. going all the way back. And this is how you do it. Every single thing said, because it's connection back. Yes, and that's what we really, to become people of gratitude, we need connection back. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he's the only heart in human existence who is truly thankful. The only heart. All we can do is just try. All we can do is just try. So what are our blessings? I mean, where can we start and where can we end with blessings? They're never ending. And one thing I recommend is there's children here. I really recommend the problem that we have with our children is really, essentially, our children are spoiled. Yeah, like just by living in this society, default, they become spoiled. And what I would recommend for your children is go and take them, go and get them to live with the fuqara. Then to see what life's about. Go and get them to live with people where they have bread in the morning and then stale bread in the evening. Go and get them to live with someone like that for a week, 2 weeks, and then come back and then see how they get on. Yeah, we did this for like two or 3 days with my daughters when they were in Morocco. They were staying with fuqara, people that don't have toothpaste, people that've got no guarantee that they're gonna have food that evening. They wake up in the morning and they try and sell a few biscuits, and if they sell the biscuits, then they got money, then they can eat. Otherwise, they haven't got anything to eat. Yeah, so then tell them and they experience the hunger. Go 2 or 3 days without food, and then we come back and then let's have a chat now. What's life about, son? What's life about, oh dear daughter? Yeah, this is how we're going to learn. This is how we're going to learn shukr ourselves. I was mentioning yesterday about this man, we met him outside Asda, who's like his lips had gone blue. He's staying just at the bypass, just here, like by the motorway. Go and stay with him. Like take your sons and your daughters, so go and live with him for 2 or 3 days. Yeah, that's it. I like for me, those 2 or 3 days, that would be more beneficial. And I'll say this again and again, that's more beneficial than 3 months of school. Personally, the fakir, I'm not a fan of school. My kids haven't had a day in school in their lives. They've been homeschooled. School is one thing. You want them to learn real life lessons. Yeah, I know there's teachers here, sorry. Yeah, you want them to learn real life lessons. Real life lessons, get them to do that. Just 2 or 3 days, go and live with the fuqara. That's an experience. Yeah? I'll tell you right now, if anyone wants, I'll send you right now. I'll send you to Morocco, to many families. Yemen, even worse. 80% of Yemen is on the verge of starvation. Yeah, 80% of it. Go and live with it, and then you understand what shukr is. You understand all of these realities. Without that, it's just approximations. We can hear a few stories and try to understand them, but reality is reality. And reality has to be experienced, has to be lived. Yeah, Islam, this is one of the things about Islam. The Prophet ﷺ, people would come to him, he would teach them the rules in a day, an afternoon. And then he said, go and live it now. Go and live the reality. Go and teach other people. Go and struggle to spread this message. Then you'll know what it's about. Yeah, so these are just some of the aspects that we haven't even covered a lot of the juz. It's just so most of giving a general bath. So he talks about, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions different gifts. And he talks about the greatest gift of all that we've been given, which is the gift of guidance. Yeah, the gift of guidance. And then he looks at different aspects, this juz, he looks at different aspects of prophecy. Why is it that people don't believe in prophets? It's an interesting question. Why is it that they don't believe in prophets? There's nobody who has ever accused any prophet of being a liar. Yeah, like haqiqatan, that you lied. They've never accused them of lying about worldly matters, but they accuse them about lying about Allah. Yeah, they never accused. There's no single prophet. There's no single, like now the Prophet ﷺ, all these narrations, we have over 1 million hadith. We have narrations from non-Muslim historians, many, that we wouldn't even consider them to be valid because they're not siqat, they're not people of siqat, they're not people of reliability. But they're there. All of those narrations, there's not a single example, even one of the Prophet ﷺ ever having told a lie about anything. Not a single example that you can bring. So that's not the reason. The reason that they reject is because they're too busy in dunya. They don't want to think about the bigger questions. No one wants to think, what's the meaning of life? Yeah, they just don't want to think. If people do start to think about it, then that's mashallah, that's when people have openings, but no one wants to think about it. So this surah is telling us, the first surah Hijr is telling us the reason why. Yeah, the reason why people don't believe in prophets. They're busy. And that's our challenge really. The Prophet he said, I don't fear shirk for you. Yeah, he said this in Sahih al-Bukhari. So he goes, I don't fear that you're going to start having associating partners, and I don't fear that for you. What I fear for you is that you're going to compete over the dunya. You're going to compete over this, fulus, as they call it in Arabic. Money. Yeah, money. That's it. And that has just distracted us now. To the extent we don't even have time to go on spiritual journeys. Imam al-Ghazali, just to finish, Imam al-Ghazali, he was a man, he recognized that he was sick. Now look at this for intelligence. Imam al-Ghazali was the leading scholar in the world at the time. He was the head of the biggest university in the world at the time, the Nizami in Baghdad. He had hundreds of thousands of students from all over the world. You would think the guy's, in our time, he's smashing it. What more do you want? He's in charge of the biggest university in the world. He's giving knowledge to hundreds of thousands of people every day. From all over the place. They're coming from China to Spain and everywhere in between. South Africa, North Africa, Far East, wherever you think about, they're all coming to him, sitting at his feet, and he's teaching them fiqh. He's teaching them all these sciences, Quran, Hadith, all of this. He's doing all of this. What is he says? He realizes that he's sick. He says, I've got arrogance in my heart and I need to get rid of it. So he leaves everything behind. SubhanAllah. He leaves it. If you look up at this man, Imam al-Ghazali, first and foremost, look what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's trying to teach, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes away his ability to speak like that. He just rips it out. You can't speak anymore now. What are you going to do now? And he realizes, I can't speak. That's a sign from Allah that I'm going to leave this behind. So he leaves, he goes for 10 years. He just disappears from the face of the earth. Leaves his family behind, family, kids, he's got all that. He's got his job, the biggest job. He's getting paid so much money. The king at the time is like his best friend. He's got position, power. All these people are coming and they're like, oh, it's Imam al-Ghazali, it's Imam al-Ghazali, all that stuff. He leaves all that behind for 10 years to wander around the jungles, to just get out and just wander around, to find out what life's really about. Yeah, that's it. So when people do that, that's when they experience illumination. We want illumination. Like one of the things now is like, religion is enjoyable. For me, coming back now, the big problem I'm seeing right now is no one enjoys religion anymore. Especially our young people. They don't enjoy religion. Now, why do they not enjoy religion? Part of that maybe is the way we're presenting it to them, no doubt. But part of the reason is because to enjoy religion, it takes a bit of hard work first. That's the problem. You got to do better. Once you do that hard work, mashallah, there's nothing sweeter in life than praying to Allah. There's nothing sweeter in life than calling upon Allah. Just before now, we're going to all open our fast in about 40 minutes. That moment, those moments when you're about to call upon Allah, there's no sweeter enjoyment in the world than that, by Allah. And we know there's millions of testimonies to that. You want case studies, you want examples, there's millions that we can bring of people who say the greatest, the most exalted and sweetest pleasure in life, greater than any food that you can eat, greater than any physical pleasure that you can have for the men here, greater than any pleasure you can enjoy, any pleasure, is the pleasure of being able to speak with Allah and being intimate with Allah. That's the greatest pleasure. Now, when are we going to experience that? We're going to go through a bit of work first and then we'll experience it. There's people now, they experience that all the time. They did their 5, 10 years of spiritual struggle, and now, mashallah, they're in a permanent state of ecstasy and happiness. That's what we're lacking, and that's why we're not grateful. Those people who are experiencing that, they're grateful. They're grateful for when Allah sends them tribulation. They're grateful for when Allah gives them gifts. It doesn't make any difference to them. They're always happy. They're always grateful. So in order to achieve that, number one, it takes knowledge. Yeah, that's the beginning of it. And then number two, it takes struggle. You have knowledge and struggle, you'll experience it. And you know what happens? What our teachers tell us? They say that when you learn knowledge and then you start to practice it, you experience that joy. They say the joy is so phenomenal that you forget about the world. You forget about everything else. You just want to be with the Quran. You just want to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you know what our teachers said? At that point, don't forget about others. Don't forget about da'wah at that point. And naturally, you're just going to forget this. I don't want to see another person again. All I want to do is spend my life enjoying this relationship I have with Allah. At that point, don't forget, you've got to still go out and teach. You've still got to go out and explain. You've still got to go and advise. You've still got to go out and spread this message to others. Don't forget that. But the fact that they make that point is telling you what? That there's great joy and sweetness within that. There must be. If there wasn't sweetness and joy within that, then why would they be saying to us, oh, listen, when you get to that stage, yeah? So you're going to get to that stage, inshallah, if you're serious upon this path. At that stage, don't forget other people. Yeah, remember them in your du'as and go and call them to what you experience, inshallah. We also ask Allah to allow us to realize some of these meanings, inshallah, in this short time that we have on this earth. If there's any questions, inshallah, we can take questions after we've overrun a little bit, inshallah. If there's any questions. If there's anything anyone wants to ask via Zoom, they can ask as well via the chat. Inshallah.
Just one question or clarification. When person yourself or others say, they leave everything. They leave everything and they don't do anything. obviously you don't mean that you're not earning your living, etc. So that I just want to ask that.
Good question.
When it means that you're leaving everything, you're just doing that.
Brilliant question. Yeah. So the key, when we say when you're leaving everything, we don't leave our obligations behind. That's a very important point. So Islam, it begins with knowledge, and we have to know what we have to do. Yeah, there's things in life that we have to do. We've got to look after our families, etc. Those things. But what I'm saying is, those people who leave behind, they cut that down to absolute minimum. I'll give you an example. A good friend of mine from Preston, he said to me many years ago, he said, listen, he said, if I decide I'm going to eat one meal a day, yeah, and I'm just going to live in one little room, because I'd only need to work about 2 or 3 hours a week. So, okay, there you go. Okay, so that's the idea, that they cut out all the distractions to a minimum. They do what they need to do, and then they're getting on with it. Because basically, the ones who are working for sadaqah, for example, that's good. If you're working to provide for your family, that's going to distract you from Allah. That's going to get you closer to Allah. Yeah. So, but the point is that you leave it, and if you're honest, the vast majority of our time, we're doing things that we don't have to do. There's something better we could be doing at that time, which is remembering Allah, gaining knowledge, etc. No doubt. And nowadays, especially, the stats are out there, aren't they? They monitor everything. They know exactly what you're watching on your phone and on your computer. They know where you're going. It's all there. So they can break it all down for you now and say, this is how much people spend. Like, subhanAllah, you look now, the amount of people that are watching inappropriate content. Now, in the Muslim lands, it's far worse, actually, because there's a massive problem of unmarried young men. Yes, subhanAllah. So this is what we have. So the vast majority of our time in America now, they're saying 8 hours a day, people are on this thing, on this smartphone, watching things that are not beneficial. If it's beneficial, mashallah, there's good things you can do with this, but it's unless you train, it's a very, very dangerous thing. Very, very dangerous. And really, I would say to 99.9% of people, get rid of it. By Allah, you don't need it. And you'll get much more benefits in your life by not having it than having it. Illa, mashallah, except for very, very few people who need it. Very, very, very. And even those people who need it, even they're still struggling with it. It's still a struggle for everybody. But really, the fact we don't need it, we don't. But if you tell that, like I've mentioned this briefly, one of them, he had a dream. He said the Trojan path, he had a dream. He saw Sayyidina Ali in his dream. And Sayyidina Ali, he takes this thing. He takes this, like literally, he takes his phone and he throws it into the sea. Because they went to this place in Wales, it's like right by the sea. So he takes it and throws it into the sea. And then this man, he went to our teacher, Sheikh Ibrahim, and said to him, this is the dream, now what does it mean? I said, come on. He goes, you don't need me to interpret that, it's obvious. Get rid of it. That's what it means. Because you don't need to go to Habib Qasim or this difficult dream to interpret. It's obvious because the meaning is clear. Now, if you want to take that or not, that's your own choice. But really, like that's it. And you know what people, like our teacher Hamza used to say 20 years ago, smash the TV. TV doesn't mean anything now because they've just got you here. They've got you right here. And literally, guaranteed, like I would say everybody, potentially everybody in this room, said to everybody in this country, 99.9% we're slaves to this. We worship this more than we worship Allah, without a shadow of a doubt. Like if you can bring me somebody who worships Allah more than he worships this, mashallah, they're going to be closer to the Sahaba. You know, because the ones who worship Allah more than they worship this, they'll do a full Quran khatam every day. Because how much time are we spending on this thing? If we transfer that time to reading the Quran, we finish the Quran khatam every day. What is Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal? We'd be like Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. In Ramadan, we'll be doing probably 2 a day. Yeah, just by getting rid of this. So if this is one thing, just get rid of this, and then that's the beginning of you removing distractions. Yeah, you don't have to go to the jungle. Yeah, that's something to work upon. Get your little caravan motorhome and get out and about. And I'm not saying don't do that much. That's good as well. But number one, just get rid of this hideous machine. You don't need it. Like no one's gonna die if they don't know exactly where you are. Like if you don't know, oh, like what's my wife cooking for iftar? You get home, you find out when you get home what she's cooking. You don't need to find out she's gonna send you a picture. Oh, mashallah, yeah, we've got mashed potato and salmon today or something. Yeah. Or whatever. You don't need it, really, none of this stuff. Yeah, and just redirect back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, we ask Allah to allow us to realize some of these meanings, to make it a permanent, make Ramadan a permanent Ramadan of change. So that our lives become Ramadani in nature, that throughout our days and throughout the years and our lives that we living Ramadan in every moment, inshallah. Wa sallallahu ta'ala sayyidina wa habibina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sallam, alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.